Hello everyone, my name is Garrett Ogamber, and this is a small little mod spotlight. Not a mod that I've made, but a mod that I am very interested in, that somebody had the amazing idea of creating. Normally when I do mod spotlights, I talk about mods that I've made in the past, but since I don't actually mod for Mount & Blade Warband, this caught my attention fast. What I have here is some screenshots of the actual mod in progress, and I also have some video of a similar mod called Fantasy Calradia. Now, Mount & Blade Warband is a incredibly fun open world sandbox medieval simulation game, but what it's failed to have is a consistent theme with fantasy. A lot of the fantasies that come out are either based on books or they are just general fantasy. And, I mean, obviously Fantasy Calradia is exactly that. It's generalized fantasy, but this mod aims to be all about the undead and what they can do to the world. You get to play as an undead, or play against, but you get to play as an undead and just utterly decimate the world with legions of the dead. And the reason I'm using the Fantasy Calradia scenes is because I don't have access to this mod. No one does, but I have here, similar themes and models and things like that from Fantasy Calradia, and I'm hoping, with the amount of fun I've had with this, that this awesome mod, Rise of the Undead, is just as amazing. Now, from the sound of the mod, basically, Rise of the Undead takes place in the same world as, the general story. So you have, the Five Kingdoms doing whatever. And on top of it, you have this new faction from the north, which are all undead, which are all skeletons, ghosts, wights, zombies, whatever you want to call it, liches, probably even vampires, who knows. And from the appearance of it, shadows and wraiths. This is really cool. And also the models here are, I believe, all from JoJo, who was a modder from Oblivion and Morrowind and Skyrim and a variety of other games. These models are familiar to anyone who's seen them from any of those games. And I was so happy to see that Frostmourne, among other things, are in this mod, because they don't exist in Warband or Mount & Blade in general. You have to look far and wide to find a modder who's actually put them in. And they can do it. They can put these models in, but thankfully this modder knew that people would want to see this kind of stuff. I love Frostmourne as a weapon, and oh my god, it's in this mod. So you can basically be a Lich King of sorts. You can be a master of the darkness, which is just awesome. I've always loved the undead in fantasy. I've always loved seeing the different incarnations of them, just to see what they are in this world, what they can do. And in Mount & Blade, it is such an open-ended experience. You get to be the character you want to be and just play as you'd want to play. So for me, whenever there's undead in a Mount & Blade mod, it's really cool. It's just, some people are like, oh, I love elves, or I love dwarves, and things like that. Well, for me, it's the Scourge, the undead. I love seeing them in any variety, in any capacity, and Fantasy Calradia has been my go-to mod for that, because there's a lot of, generalized fantasy faction stuff, but I really wanted a game that tried to touch up, not a game, a mod that touched upon just the undead and how they would interact with the world of the living, and what a problem they could become. Obviously, for many reasons, they'd be more resistant to attacks, outside of a crushing blow to the head, most types of undead are not going to go down. Then there's some that might not even be affected by normal weapons, or have a reduced effect. There's all sorts of things you could do with magic as well with this kind of mod. Chilling auras and fear and all sorts of dark magic could be imbued into this, not to mention everyone who dies against the undead. These are just ideas. Like, Fantasy Calradia does it, where every time you kill, units, you have a chance of raising them as undead, skeletons or zombies. But you could go a step further and create wraith minions and things like that, or even bestow upon your followers, lichdom, or make them into death knights. Now, coming from somebody who recently got into Mount and Blade, because I only got into it about 2 years ago or so, and I didn't even know the game existed. That is how shameful it is, because I love this game. But seeing what the modding community can do now is so amazing, and Bannerlord is just around the corner. I am just wondering what kind of mods are going to come out within this time frame. I mean, we're seeing a lot of big mods for Mount and Blade Warband, but clearly these people have an interest, these modders have an interest in modding and continuing to mod this kind of game, and from here the game can only get better. So what are we seeing on the horizon for Bannerlord? Like, what kind of game experience can we possibly imagine with the next gen version of this game? I mean, in Mount and Blade Warband, I'm constantly seeing new kinds of mods that do things very differently than other mods, and it's really cool. To name a few that I have that I've enjoyed playing, you have Fantasy Calradia, you have Solid and Shade, which are both based around mythologies. Solid and Shade is kinda sorta Lovecraftian with undead and vampire, lich, and werewolf lore, and is the only one of its kind that has all of those together. With Rise of the Undead, it's basing itself around the undead, the fantasy, and probably a little bit of realism in some lore and stuff like that of undead in general. Plus, it's just making you a complete badass. You get to be a Dark Lord, become a Wraith King, or whatever you want to call it. You get to become something really evil and shadowy, and just take out every faction, every nation, make them fall before you. It's just a really good kind of fantasy theme, and I'm just pleased to see things like this in Mount and Blade. So, I mean, again, I don't know when this mod is coming out. I will be putting a link in the description below for this mod. If you are interested in supporting it, add some comments and things like that. I've already been just adding a few stupid little comments here and there saying, oh, it'd be cool if we could see this and that. And the moderator, the person creating this, is really responsive. They want their mod to be something unique, something, when people say, oh, what kinds of mods are there for Mount and Blade that are horror-based or completely change a huge faction or a concept of the game? In this case, you have the fucking dead rising up, and I'm so excited about that. Now, some little side notes, preferential stuff. Me, as a fan of the Undead, I really like the whole World of Warcraft aspect of a lot of the Undead. They're all bound to a single lord and master. Above every other general and thing like that, there's the Lich King. So, for me, I'm kind of hoping there's a sort of item or phylactery or crystal or whatever that the master has, and maybe at some point you can rise through the ranks and kill said master and become the master yourself, or find an artifact stronger and wrest control the entire kingdom. Perhaps even there is no undead when you start the game. If you decide to play the version of the game where the undead you're in control, you're the reason that they exist. That'd be really cool, to just set up a kingdom and start killing armies and just bending their corpses to your dark will. That would be really interesting, but I don't really... That doesn't need to happen in a game like this, in a mod like this. It doesn't need to. It's just a little interesting way of putting that spin on it. Preferably, I'd love the undead to live somewhere cold, because undead don't feel cold, and it makes them more inapproachable. It makes them just a force to be reckoned with. When people go to fight the undead legions, they have to really put themselves out of the comfort zone. They have to go into the frozen north, the temperatures, the morale is low, and meanwhile, everyone who dies happens to rise up as something horrible. So me personally, seeing a chance for that, that'd be really cool to see. What I didn't like about Fantasy Calradia is most of the undead were mummies, and they were based around, the sands of Egypt, essentially. And that was kind of... I get where they were going with it, but for me, I didn't like it so much. Because it's like they have an emphasis on fire and heat, and undead don't like fire. Zombies light up like a fucking walking torch. Mummies, most of all, are quite flammable. I guess some people could argue that, but I'm sorry, if you're really dry, you're going to catch fire. That's just how it is. And in other things, too, fire is a sense of warmth and continuity, whereas cold is more barren, inhospitable. It's just, it's comfortless. And that's what I always like to see. And that's, again, what World of Warcraft is. They chose to base a lot of the themes around the undead, around cold and frost in the frigid Northlands. And that's a very effective imagery. Again, this modder is going to do whatever they're going to do, but it doesn't even matter what kind of theme. It doesn't matter because it's really cool. The mod is using a lot of models that you're seeing here in this fantasy mod. The armor, some of the shadow textures and things like that, but then he's adding in models that no one's added in yet to Mount and Blade, such as the Lich King armor and weapons, and I don't actually, when I say Lich King armor, I mean the Dread Knight armor. I don't think he's going to be adding Arthas's armor in. That isn't a matter of copyright, it's just a matter of, it's really recognizable. Frostmourne, okay, everyone recognizes the sword, but the fact is, it can still be made into something new. You don't have to call it Frostmourne. You can say it is the Wraith King, or, the Sword of Eternal Darkness or Night, or some bullshit like that. It just looks like Frostmourne. It's really cool. In fact, he could even do something completely different. Give it, like, purple flames and shit, and instead of blue. That's perfectly okay. I would love to see all these features in this mod. I would love to see this mod become one of the top mods for Mount and Blade. That's just my opinion, though. It's my opinion. And I am so very excited for it. I'm very excited for Bannerlord as well. But in order to crush time between, waiting, I've been looking up a lot of mods. And yeah, I've been having a good time looking at things and chatting and seeing what people are coming up with, ideas. I thought of a Rise of the Undead mod, a very similar theme of mod. I thought of doing a thing where you have the main kingdoms, and then you have the undead, and then you have like a church of sorts. And Fantasy Calradia has a very similar thing as well. They have, obviously, the Crusaders, and then they have the undead. But the two factions don't really cooperate with the people on either end. The undead, for instance, don't cooperate with the other undead that are wild on the map. And the undead are kind of unity. That's what they stand for. They stand for absolute unity, and that's what scares the living people. Whereas the church, the Crusaders, they stand for, unity through belief, but they're not, united, because they're separate beings. They're living, they're sentient, they have souls, whereas the undead don't. So there's a difference. I mean, men can cower in fear and betray each other. The undead can't betray each other. And I feel Fantasy Calradia failed to achieve this. It really failed to achieve a noticeable difference between the two factions other than what they looked like. Unless you become a Lich in this game and Calradia, there's a noticeable difference between being a Lich and a normal character, because everyone hates you as a Lich. But I'm hoping in this mod that's coming out, Rise of the Undead, that the mod maker takes into account if you become an undead, scourge, if you become some unholy horror, there needs to feel like there's a difference, like something about you is completely unique. Maybe if they add vampires in, for instance, you shouldn't be out in daylight because you'll be really weakened. Maybe you can't heal. Maybe you start losing health when you travel and to a minimum of certain, obviously you couldn't do it because you'd be traveling during day and you'd just die, but I mean, like, you would be weakened dreadfully weakened, and maybe you can feed off of others to gain health and things like that. Maybe in battle there's like a thing where you can just insta-kill someone with your bare hands and just rip out their throat. Some crazy stuff like that. Maybe as a wraith, you know, you can cause insanity, you know, by lashing out at someone. I don't know. There's a lot of ways, very subtle ways, to make the undead feel undead. And I'm hoping to see a lot of creative uses of this theme, even if there aren't. I mean, I don't know, I've never tried modding Mount & Blade Warband, because it's very difficult to mod for, from what I understand. Not like Bannerlord. Bannerlord's going to be having its own creation kit. It's going to come equipped with that. It's going to be amazing, but Warband, you got to do all this other stuff just to get the mods working, and I don't know what you can achieve, but what I want to see is the armor. I want to see that theme, the pictures that I've just been posting here. Those are so awesome. They're so beautiful. I love seeing that grim atmosphere. I love seeing this just unreal sense of the world that we know. Seeing Coloradia become slowly corrupted like that, and having these unholy horrors, especially if you're not playing as the Undead. If you decide to go into this mod playing as a Coloradian, and you know, you're just like any ordinary person, and also you see a group of skeletons come over, and there's like mist, and the sun is hanging low, and there's this dull orange kind of burnished sky. It's just creepy as hell. Maybe there's some dead trees, maybe you hear some crows in the background. The atmosphere looks amazing, and the characters look amazing. The armor, the weapons, oh my god, I'm geeking out over it. So it's, you know, this video is just literally my thoughts, random thoughts on this really cool mod that's going to be coming out. So, I mean, I would implore anyone who has a similar like, and even if you don't, you know, just take a look at it. If you have the game, if you're interested in seeing it, I will definitely be playing that mod. In fact, I might even do my own series for it, because it looks so cool. It's something I really like. And I feel a lot of people need to emote that more. When a modder, when someone creates something, they need to say, hey, I really like your work, and other people should take a look at it, just out of curiosity's sake. You might not even own the game and just be like, well, that's really fascinating, you know? I remember when someone made new types of gems for Oblivion, like Tiger's Eye and Hawk's Eye, Smoky Quartz gems. There was like green amethyst. There was all these different stones that didn't exist in Oblivion. Someone made a mod for it, and they were just so cool, and they all had different prices, and some of them were used in magical ingredients, so there was a reason to it. There was a fluidity about it, and they were added to the item loot table, so they existed everywhere. There were even new mining nodes. It was such a cool mod, and I don't know whatever happened to it, but you see what I mean? You say, hey, I'm looking for something, some modder created it, I support their work, I like it. You can just say, I like this, and that's support enough. But for me, I'm definitely going to download this thing. This is a must-download for me. So, anyhow, I guess I've just been blathering on about this. Thank you all so much for watching. Check out this mod, Rise of the Undead, on the link below. And I will see you all in the next episode of Mount & Blade, whenever I do another one, because I've been planning on it, I just haven't gotten around to it. So, see you around. Bye!